Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
May 16, 2020, the Coloring Book Edition. First up, from the New York Times, the Department of Justice is planning to file an antitrust charges against Google as early as this summer. The DOJ is still investigating the internet company, and the regulators are focusing on Google's dominance in the online advertising industry. The case also involves allegations the company abused its dominant position for online search to harm competitors. No word on whether Donald Trump will instruct the Attorney General to drop the lawsuit because Google made a campaign contribution to the Trump campaign. Next up, you think travel was bad before and a pain in the wazoo? Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, it is getting ready to get exponentially worse as U.S. officials are preparing to check passengers' temperatures beginning as soon as next week. It will be done by the TSA, and details have not been fully released and are subject to change, of course. The cost is expected to be in a $20 million range. Cough, cough. And passengers are said not to be will not be charged an additional fee. Full huzza gazza there. Airlines have been pushing the TSA to start taking passengers' temperatures as part of a multifaceted effort to keep potentially sick people off planes and make passengers feel safe about traveling again, as demand for air travel has dropped about 90%. But think about how long it takes to get through now, and imagine that line now not outside the airport, but literally wrapped around the airport. As Roy Rogers would sing, happy trails to you. Next up, from the New York Times, how do you deal with a difficult employee, i.e. a toxic worker? Well, interestingly, the Times used that question to explore the documentary currently running on ESPN about Michael Jordan. The documentary is called The Last Dance. It's a 10-part documentary about his career, and it really shows how Jordan was an incredibly difficult person to be a teammate of, that he bullied people, he yelled at people, he ridiculed people, all in an effort to get them to play better. So I've had some thoughts on this, and my employment experience was that the people that were the most difficult to work for are the people I learned the most from. Now, these were not co-workers, these were bosses I worked for, so whatever you may want to call them, I certainly learned a lot from them. And I think at the end of the day, Jordan made his team better. So all of the complaints about him taking people and making them work harder and play better, I think all of that led to the number 6 for the greatest player of all time. Finally, from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal, U.S. agencies gave the global maritime industry procedures to avoid being exploited by alleged terrorists and other illicit actors trying to seeking to trade. In guidance, the Department of State, Treasury, and Coast Guard noted that malign actors have been using a number of novel deceptive tactics to enable trade with such countries such as Iran, North Korea, and Syria. Finally, in our lead story, the Trump administration now admits that the Obama administration left them a 69-page playbook for dealing with a pandemic, but have complained because it has words on it, not pictures, and it's not in coloring book format. So if you're dealing with the Trump administration, be sure and use a coloring book. Check it out. Coming up on this month's edition of The Compliance Life, I visit with Ellen Hunt. She's the CCO at AARP. We're going to have 4 episodes on Ellen's journey up to the CCO chair and beyond. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.